Death didn't always come with the roar of a gun. Sometimes it arrived with silence, the kind that pressed down heavier than the desert sky. Out here in the West, a sigh could cut deeper than steel. That evening, the sun bled into the horizon, sinking like a copper coin into the dust. Esperanza was nearly swallowed by dusk. Only a few lamps burned in the saloon, flickering against warped window glass. The street lay empty, the wind dragging loose shingles across rooftops. Every sound carried too far, the squeal of a weather vane, the thud of boots on hard-packed earth. Cole Archer walked alone. They called him a bounty hunter, though in truth he was a man shackled to his own vows. His face bore lines, like the cracks in a drought-struck riverbed. His eyes, pale and sharp, carried the chill of steel tempered in ice. Slung across his horse was a gray sack tied tight with hemp rope. It swung with each step of the animal, weighty, uneven, as if what lay inside refused to rest. Every jolt gave off a muffled rattle, like bones striking bones. He brought it to an old shack on the edge of town, a preacher's cabin, abandoned since the man had vanished years ago. The wood leaned inward, eaten by termites. The cross above the door half rotted into nothing. Cole tethered his horse, heaved the sack down, and let it fall with a heavy thump onto the splintered floorboards. The oil lamp he lit gave off a smoky glow, spreading long shadows that seemed to breathe. The sack looked almost alive, its outline shifting with the flame. Then came the sound behind him. Soft, deliberate. A woman emerged from the darkness. She was thin, her cheeks hollow, her eyes burning like embers buried deep in ash. Her shawl was patched and frayed, her black hair tangled across her face. "Please," she whispered. "Take them off." Cole's hand brushed the butt of his revolver. "You know what's inside?" Her gaze did not waver. "I know. And I'm the only one left who dares look." The silence that followed was heavier than iron. Outside, the wind keened through the cracks in the wall, sounding too much like a cry. Cole crouched, gripping the rope. Each knot felt like a weight on his chest, binding him to ghosts he had tried to forget. She stepped closer. "If you don't untie it, they'll keep haunting this place, haunting you, haunting everyone." Cole's breath came slow, steady. He had seen men braver than himself crumble when faced with the truth, and he had seen frail souls stand tall when nothing else could. He yanked on the rope. The knot gave way with a rasping sound, like a blade cutting through cloth. The air shifted. A sour metallic stench rose, crawling into his nostrils, pricking the back of his throat. Cole opened the sack and bent the lamp forward. The flame licked the contents, and his body went rigid. It wasn't gold. It wasn't guns. And it wasn't bones, though the weight had suggested it. It was fabric, blood-soaked scraps torn from dresses and shirts. Bundled between them were trinkets, a bent silver ring, a cracked locket, a broken crucifix. Things once carried close to the heart, now stripped away and stuffed into burlap like trash. Cole's jaw tightened, veins swelling against his temples. He knew these pieces. He had seen them before, hanging from the necks and hands of those who had disappeared in recent months. Mothers, daughters, ranch hands who never came back from a supply trip. Families had buried empty coffins, praying for closure. And here, in this sack, lay the proof of their stolen lives. The woman fell to her knees, tears sliding down her dirt-streaked cheeks. Her voice cracked, yet carried the firmness of stone. "These are their echoes. What they left behind. What was taken from them. Now you see it too. Cole turned away, but the lamplight betrayed him. His shadow sprawled across the wall, jagged and monstrous, as though the truth itself had marked him. He understood in that instant. There was no turning back. The wind outside howled, then hushed as if listening. Cole's voice came low, ragged. "Who put these here?" The woman clutched her shawl, trembling. Then she looked up, her eyes cutting through the gloom. "A man you once hunted. You thought you knew his sins, thought the price on his head told the story, but the bounty was too small. This is the truth he left behind." Cole felt the floor tilt beneath him, the weight of his vow pressing down. He had hunted for money, but money could not balance this scale. What she laid before him was not currency. It was a debt written in blood. The lamp flickered hard, the flame clawing at the glass, as though the air itself recoiled from what was named. Their shadows merged on the cabin wall, two figures poised at the edge of something vast, dark, and irreversible. Cole lowered his gaze to the sack once more. The stench, the relics, the blood, all of it demanded reckoning. His hand hovered above the revolver at his side, but for once it was not the weapon he needed. It was resolve. Outside, the desert held its breath. That night marked the beginning. Cole Archer had opened the sack, and with it he had opened a wound stitched shut by silence. The town of Esperanza would bleed before it healed, and Cole, he would have to decide whether he was still a hunter of men, or if at last he would become something else, an instrument of justice. The oil lamp hissed, its flame guttering as if the cabin itself wanted no part of what had been revealed. Cole Archer didn't move for a long while. His boots were rooted to the warped planks, his eyes fixed on the sack of relics bleeding memory into the room. The woman remained on her knees, hands clutching her shawl, breath rattling in her chest. Finally, Cole spoke. His voice was gravel dragged across stone. "You said I hunted him." The woman nodded, her gaze locked on the blood-stained fabrics. "Years ago. They paid you to bring him in alive. You did, but they never told you what he'd done in the shadows." Cole's jaw worked. He remembered. A job out near Yuma, a fugitive named Darius Flint, bandit, thief, card cheat, worth $500 dead or alive. Cole had delivered him breathing. A sheriff took him in chains, promising justice. That was supposed to be the end. "Flint was hanged," Cole muttered. The woman lifted her face, eyes shining through the gloom. "Was he? Or did they hang some poor drifter wearing his name? Ask yourself, Archer, why do people keep vanishing here in Esperanza? Why do their keepsakes turn up in his sack?" Cole felt the weight of his revolver. The memory of Flint's smile came back sharp. Too sharp. A man who grinned even with rope around his wrists. A man who whispered that debts were never settled. The woman rose slowly, legs trembling but resolve hardening her spine. "He's here. I've seen him. He walks under a different name now, hidden among us. And he hunts the way a wolf does, always at night, always unseen. Those trinkets you hold are not trophies. They are his ledger." Cole's hand curled. He wasn't sure if it was rage or dread burning in his veins. Outside, the wind dropped. A sound echoed in its place, the faint, irregular strike of a hammer on iron. Cole froze. The woman's breath hitched. "The blacksmith's forge," she whispered. "He works there by day, as though he belongs. But by night—" She choked back the rest. Cole moved to the window, pulled back a ragged curtain. Across the empty stretch of dirt, he saw it. A glow, faint but steady, pulsing like the heart of the town. The forge was alive this late, though no honest work demanded it. Sparks rose into the night air, carried off by the dark. Cole let the curtain fall. "Why tell me?" "Because you don't flinch," she answered. "Others see shadows and run. You look at them, even if it kills you. And if he isn't stopped, more will vanish. Maybe me, maybe the children, maybe you." Her words struck him harder than any bullet. He had built his life on distance. Take the job, drag in the outlaw, collect the coin, move on, never linger, never invest. But now, staring at that sack of sorrow, he knew there was no coin large enough to walk away. He doused the lamp, leaving only moonlight spilling through cracks. Then he lifted the sack, slinging it over his shoulder, as if it weighed nothing. "If Flint's here, I'll see it with my own eyes." The woman reached for his arm, surprising him. "Be careful. He doesn't just kill. He breaks people first, makes them beg for mercy, makes them beg to be forgotten." Cole said nothing. He stepped into the night, boots crunching gravel, the sack dragging at his shoulder. The woman followed at a distance, her shawl pulled tight, her breath misting in the cool desert air. The town lay quiet, doors barred, shutters drawn. Dogs that normally barked were silent, tails tucked in fear. Only the forge lived, a steady clang beating like a drum of war. Cole approached slow, every step measured. Shadows stretched long from the building, warping against the ground. The smell of scorched iron drifted on the air, bitter and metallic. He stopped short of the door, adjusted the sack on his shoulder, and listened. Another hammer strike, another pause. But beneath it, a sound, faint and human. A muffled cry, cut short. Cole's stomach knotted. He'd heard it before, in back alleys and prison yards. A gagged mouth fighting for breath. He glanced back. The woman stood 20 paces away, eyes wide, shaking her head as if to warn him off. Cole ignored it. He pushed the door, and the forge yawned open, heat blasting his face. Sparks swirled, carried by the draft. The hammer came down once more, striking an anvil. The figure wielding it was broad-shouldered, hair slick with sweat, back turned. Cole dropped the sack. The sound echoed like thunder in the chamber. The hammer paused. Slowly, the blacksmith straightened, turning, the firelight carving his face out of shadow. Cole's pulse surged. It was Flint. Older, beard streaked with gray, but the eyes, those same cunning eyes, glittering with mirthless humor. The scar across his cheek, the grin carved into his mouth. "Well, well," Flint drawled, voice rolling like smoke. "If it ain't Archer. Thought I smelled judgment riding into town." Cole's hand hovered near his revolver. "You should have stayed dead." Flint chuckled, low and cruel. "Dead men don't get to collect, and I've been collecting plenty." His gaze flicked to the sack at Cole's feet. "Ah, you found my little book of memories. Pretty things, ain't they? Each one a story, each one a soul." Cole's teeth clenched. The woman outside stifled a sob. Flint leaned on the hammer, casual as sin. "So what's it gonna be, Archer? Bring me in again, let another sheriff hang the wrong man, or will you play judge this time, an executioner too?" The fire roared, casting shadows that twisted and danced across the walls. The air grew thick, heavy with smoke, and the stench of scorched metal. Cole stood in the center of it, heart pounding, the weight of every ghost pressing down on him. Flint grinned wider. "Come on, bounty man. Let's see if justice really means anything was out here." The forge breathed like a furnace, iron lungs gasping and exhaling heat into the night. Cole Archer stood with his boots planted wide, one hand hovering just shy of his revolver, the other hanging loose at his side, ready to draw. Across from him, Darius Flint leaned against the anvil as though this were no more than a saloon game. His hammer balanced lazily in his grip, his smile carved into the firelight. Outside, the wind carried dust down the empty street. The woman pressed her back against the wall of the forge, hands clutched to her shawl, ears straining. Every clang of iron made her flinch. Every pause froze her blood. Cole's voice broke the silence, low and steady. "You should have been hanging from a rope 15 years ago." Flint's grin deepened. "Oh, they tried. Trouble is, they hanged the wrong bastard. Easy to fool men drunk on justice. Give 'em a body, tell 'em it's evil, and they'll cheer while the real devil slips through the cracks." "You kept killing," Cole said flatly. "I kept living," Flint corrected, eyes glittering. "And living out here means taking what you need." "They left themselves soft, Archer. Offered themselves to me like lambs. I just made sure their stories ended clean." Cole's gaze flicked to the sack at his feet, spilling its grim treasures. He felt the ghosts pressing close, every trinket whispering for reckoning. "Clean," Cole said. "There's nothing clean about blood in the dirt." Flint chuckled, lifting the hammer, letting it catch the glow of the forge. "Funny coming from you. How many men have you dragged behind your horse? How many widows cried while you collected your coin?" The words struck like sparks. Cole stiffened, but his hand stayed steady near the revolver. "I don't take joy in it," he muttered. "Neither do I," Flint said smoothly, stepping forward, the hammer swaying. "Joy's got nothing to do with it. It's about power, about proving a man's worth by what he can keep and what he can take." Cole's throat tightened. He had hunted men for years, but never stood so near the truth of what they became when coins stripped away their souls. Flint wasn't wrong. Cole had left graves behind him, though he never dug them himself. The woman outside called out, her voice sharp with fear. "Don't listen. He twists everything, A hiss of steel silenced her. Flint had thrown a knife. Fast, precise. It struck the doorframe inches from her cheek, quivering in the wood. She gasped and stumbled back. "Stay quiet," Flint warned, never looking away from Cole. "This is between me and him." Cole's jaw locked. His revolver hand twitched. "You won't lay another hand on anyone." Flint tilted his head, mocking. "Then draw, Archer. Let's dance like old times." The air thickened. The forge snapped, flames leaping higher as though eager for blood. Sweat beaded Cole's brow, but his eyes never left Flint's. Every nerve screamed for action, but he waited, measured the distance, the weight of the hammer, the twitch in Flint's fingers. Flint's smile faded to something colder. Still the patient one, still waiting for a clean shot. "But you forget, patience don't scare wolves." He lunged suddenly, swinging the hammer with brutal force. Cole dodged, the weapon smashing into the floor where he'd stood, splinters flying. The revolver cleared leather, but Cole held his fire, rolling to his knee. Flint came on again, faster than a man his age had any right to move, the hammer whistling through the smoke. Cole fired once. The shot rang sharp, shattering the roar of the forge. Sparks showered as the bullet struck metal, deflected by the hammer's head. Flint laughed, wild, savage, pressing forward. The second shot tore through the air, grazing Flint's shoulder. He staggered, but his grin only widened. Blood soaked into his shirt, yet he swung the hammer harder, each strike shaking the anvil, echoing like thunder. The woman outside screamed his name. "Cole!" Her voice spurred him. Cole rolled, aimed low, and fired again. The bullet struck Flint's thigh, buckling his stance. The hammer dropped, clanging against the stones. For a moment, the great wolf faltered. But Flint was not a man who surrendered. He pulled a blade from his belt, teeth bared. "You'll have to gut me, Archer. Nothing less will do." Cole rose slowly, gun leveled, chest heaving. "Then so be it." Flint lunged again. Cole fired. The bullet punched through his side, spinning him against the anvil. The knife clattered away. Silence roared. Flint sagged, clutching the wound, but still laughing, a low, rasping sound. He slid down the anvil, leaving a smear of blood across its black iron. "You think this ends me?" he rasped. "Men like me, we don't die. We live in the ones we've marked." His gaze flicked to the sack, the relics of the dead. "They'll never leave you, Archer. Never." Cole's breath came ragged. He stood above him, revolver aimed at Flint's head, finger trembling on the trigger. Every instinct screamed to finish it, to silence the laughter forever. But his hand froze. Killing Flint wouldn't erase the ghosts, wouldn't return the lives stolen. It would only add another shadow to his own ledger. The woman entered, shawl falling from her shoulders, eyes locked on the wounded outlaw. "End it," she whispered. "For them. For all of us." Cole's chest tightened. He looked at her, at the sack, at Flint bleeding but unbroken. His soul balanced on a knife's edge, between the easy pull of the trigger and the heavier weight of justice, served in daylight, with witnesses, with truth laid bare. Flint coughed blood, still smiling. "What'll it be, Archer? Hunter, judge, or coward?" The revolver shook in Cole's hand. The forge spat sparks like fireflies, the whole town seeming to hold its breath. Cole lowered the gun. "You'll live," he said coldly. "Long enough for every man, woman, and child in this town to see what you are." Flint snarled, lunging weakly, but Cole drove his boot into his chest, pinning him against the anvil. "You'll hang, Flint, for real this time, and there won't be any shadows to hide in." The woman gasped in relief, though tears still streaked her cheeks. Flint spat blood, hatred boiling in his eyes. Cole dragged him upright, the outlaw's weight heavy, his laughter finally broken into wheezes. The night outside was waiting. So was the reckoning. Dawn did not arrive gentle in Esperanza. It crawled over the horizon with a bruised sky, bleeding shades of red and gold across the desert. The town stirred not with roosters or wagon wheels, but with whispers, low, urgent, fearful. By sunrise, everyone knew. Darius Flint, thought long dead, had been dragged into the street by Cole Archer. The outlaw's arms were bound tight behind his back, blood soaking through his shirt where the bullet had torn into him. He stumbled as Cole shoved him forward, boots scraping the dirt, but his grin remained. The kind of grin that thrived on attention, on power, even in chains. Behind them trailed the woman, shawl wrapped around her shoulders, the sack of relics clutched close. Her eyes scanned the gathering crowd, searching for trust, for outrage, for courage, anything that might hold. Cole shoved Flint to his knees in the center of town, dust puffing up in the morning light. Townsfolk circled, cautious, children clinging to their mothers, men with hands hovering over holsters, though none dared step forward. "This man," Cole's voice thundered, carrying across the square, "is the one who's been hunting you in the dark. He took your kin, your neighbors, your sons and daughters, and he kept their pieces as trophies." He kicked the sack forward. It spilled open, trinkets tumbling across the dirt. Rings, lockets, crucifixes, scraps of blood-stained cloth. Gasps rose, some cries, some curses. A woman collapsed to her knees, recognizing a necklace she'd given her daughter. A man's face went white at the sight of his brother's belt buckle. Murmurs spread like wildfire. "Dear God, it's true. Flint? He was supposed to be hanged." Flint laughed, his voice harsh and sharp, cutting through their fear. "You see? Even now I own you. Your memories, your grief, it's all mine. Archer can parade me here, but it don't change what's already buried." Cole yanked him upright by the collar. "You'll face judgment, Flint. Not in shadow, not in whispers. Here. Now." But as the weight of those words settled, resistance stirred. A man stepped forward. Sheriff Wilkes, his badge dull, his belly heavy from drink. His hand rested nervously on his revolver, sweat dripping under his hat. "Archer," Wilkes called, voice trembling, "you've got no authority to drag a man into town like this. Bounties are handled by law, and law comes through me. You hand him over." Cole's eyes narrowed. "You knew, didn't you?" The sheriff's gaze flickered to the sack, then to the outlaw's smirk. "Rumors, that's all. Folks vanish out here all the time. Desert swallows them whole. Ain't my fault you're digging up bones better left buried." The crowd shifted uneasily. Flint seized the moment, his voice oily. "That's right. Law's with him, not with your precious Archer. And law don't care about your grief. Law cares about keeping the peace." A few townsfolk nodded, fearful, desperate for order. Others shouted back, voices breaking, "What about our families? What about the children?" Cole's voice cut through, cold steel. "You call this peace? Look at what he kept. Look at what you've lost. You let this sheriff bury it in silence. You're already dead." The woman stepped forward, holding up a rosary, her voice steady, though her hands trembled. "This belonged to my sister. She never came home. How many more will you let vanish before you see?" Her words cracked something. Murmurs rose into anger. A man shouted, "He's right." "Archer's right," another cried. "Flint's been walking free while we've been digging graves." The sheriff's hand twitched toward his revolver. "Enough. You want chaos? You'll get blood in the streets. Hand him over, Archer." Cole's revolver was out before Wilkes finished the sentence, aimed square at his chest. The square froze, silence slicing through. "I've buried enough blood to know the cost," Cole said. "But if you'd rather shield a wolf than your own flock, then you're as guilty as he is." Wilkes's face drained of color. He backed down, muttering curses under his breath. Flint's laughter broke again, though weaker now, blood staining his teeth. "You think you've won, Archer? You drag me here, let them spit on me, maybe even hang me. But you forget. Fear don't vanish with rope. Fear breeds. And I planted plenty." He turned his gaze on the crowd, locking eyes with one trembling man, then another, until they looked away. "You'll never sleep sound again. Not knowing how many graves I've already dug, not knowing who I told my secrets to." The effect was poison. Some townsfolk shrank back, muttering, casting nervous glances at each other. Flint's shadow loomed larger than his wounds. Cole stepped forward, pressing the barrel of his revolver under Flint's jaw, forcing his eyes up. "You don't get to own their fear anymore." The woman knelt, gathering the spilled trinkets, holding them high. "We remember them," she cried, voice breaking. "And that memory is stronger than you, stronger than fear." The crowd swelled with her words. One by one, voices rose, calling names of the lost, shouting curses at Flint, tears and fury blending in the morning air. The outlaw's grin faltered for the first time, his power slipping as the people he'd haunted reclaimed their dead. Cole seized the moment. "Build the gallows," he barked. "Not for some poor drifter, not for a scapegoat, for the devil himself." Today, Esperanza decides what kind of town it'll be, one that hides in fear or one that stands in the sun. The crowd roared, louder than the forge fire the night before. Men surged forward, hauling wood, rope, whatever they could find. Women stood shoulder to shoulder, faces set like stone. Flint spat blood and curses, but his voice drowned in the thunder of their unity. Cole held him firm, his revolver steady, his vow heavier than iron. For the first time in years, he wasn't hunting for coin. He was holding the line, for justice, for the ghosts in the sack, for the fragile soul of a town clawing toward light. And as the gallows rose against the morning sky, Esperanza trembled on the edge of reckoning.